Hi everyone. Welcome to our first of many short talks. If you didn't catch our video last week, our short talks are based around the Methodist way of life and our calling and how we live out our calling as Methodists in our local communities. We're taking a theme each month and we're digging into that theme with some of these short talks. And the theme that we've got this month is prayer. And I am delighted to say that our first person that we are talking to in these short talks is Geoff. And Geoff is going to come and talk to us a little bit about prayer and meditation as Christians and what that looks like. So, hi Geoff. Thank you for joining us. Meditation. Why meditation, and especially why meditation as Christians?
Right. Well, Christian meditation, sometimes people call meditation itself a prayer of the heart. When we're young and at school, we're taught to say prayers for ourselves and prayers for other people. And you could say they're kind of talking to God. But what we need to do probably first, I think, if we can, is listen to God, to be still. Our brain is always active. It never wants to be in the present moment. It always thinks the next moment is going to be more interesting than the present moment. So it's really quite a discipline just to be still and wait and listen to God. We call it Christian simply because if we're Christian, we believe that Christ is within us through the Holy Spirit, and we want to be in touch with that Holy Spirit. If we're doing all the talking, we can't do the listening. So it's a discipline of listening, really, to God speaking to us through our heart. We tend to think that our head has all the answers, but actually most of our thinking is repetitive each day. And the same thoughts comes, the same worries. We have a thought that comes into our head, we attach our minds to it, and we go off on a worry. Christian meditation helps us to be still, to be in the present moment, and to listen to God.
And how did you kind of start this, I suppose, this journey of meditation yourself? Where did that kind of come from?
Well, about 17 years ago it was when I started. I used to find prayers of intercession in church very difficult. We'd be praying for all the hungry, we're praying to stop wars, we're praying for friends who are sick, and my brain just couldn't take it all in at once. And I just felt that there needed to be a period where I could just absorb, be still and listen. And I had a spiritual director who suggested going to a prayer group, and it actually was a meditation group. So I went one cold morning to Clapham to this church, and it was life-changing, to be honest. I felt I was coming home, and people often refer to meditation as coming home. Some people who've had a bad experience of church, in all denominations, they feel God as someone sitting as a judgmental God. And actually, when you're still and you have a regular discipline of meditation, you begin to have a different relationship with God. You find that more loving God.
And you, if I remember correctly, you have started a Christian meditation group at Putney Methodist Church, if I'm right in thinking.
Well, it was quite selfish, really, because my wife is a Methodist minister, and we were in Clapham, and then she moved to Putney, and there was no meditation group in Putney. So I thought, well, the best way is to start one. So we started one in the church, and that has been going about 13 years now. It's interesting because we often get people coming into the church who are not regular members of the church, but people, particularly young people, who are looking to find something. They feel there's something missing in their life, but they don't know quite what it is. And some of those who come to the meditation then come to the church later.
That's great. And I feel maybe they're especially at um, the start of this year, and this might be sort of maybe a bit of where I'm at. But this whole thing around sort of hurry, and I think you were
Mm,
talking about actually the brain is always whirring,
mm.
and I feel for maybe us with our context in London, which is a very busy, very fast-moving city. Um, Sort of what would you say for people who maybe are listening to this that do feel a sense of hurry, of almost being swept off their feet? How could meditation really
Well,
impact them?
yeah, I think where meditation is very good um, is that when we have time and we have worries, um, goes back to what I said earlier, our ego, which is kind of our untrue self, all those kind of thoughts that come into our head, keep wanting us to take us on a journey. So we're thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, a worry about something in 3 weeks' time. And we begin, if we follow that track of thought, it can take us to dark places. And when we meditate, and I'll explain, because the meditate we use is a mantra that we keep repeating. So in fact, we're not thinking about anything, we're concentrating on a mantra. It's a bit like, it's a discipline of stopping our thinking mind from going off. In fact, we can't completely stop it, but what we do is acknowledge a thought and go back to the mantra. And that, they say it's a bit like going to the gym. If you keep going down there, you don't see anything happening, but muscles are being built.
Mm,
And just in this very troubling time, it's so important that we don't let our minds run riot, but we're just still, but we're still, and we're saying a word, a prayer word that we're repeating in the prayer that just helps us keep regulating our mind that always wants to be over the place.
mm, mm. And I think there is definitely a quite a thread in scripture, I think, of this notion of Sabbath, of rest, of stilling, of renewing,
Mm.
and from that rest brings that sense of renewal. And I think, yeah, that sort of pausing is so important. I suppose to allow, that you've got sort of in Leviticus 25 where it talks about this principle of Jubilee, where the land was left to rest so that actually it could be renewed. And I wonder whether or not there's something similar for our minds as well, actually, when we rest in a way that invites God into that space. There is a sense of that kind of renewal, similar to kind of that picture of land regrowing, that actually everything's left to kind of rebirth.
Well, I remember going on a retreat, and the person leading the retreat said his mother used to make soup by the fire, used to put all kinds of vegetables into it and let it burn for a long period of time or slowly warm up. And at the top, there used to be a skin that used to appear. And then his mother used to come along with a spoon and just gently take that skin off. And in a way, when you're being still and meditating, in a way, that's what's being done within our heart. We're lifting the stress and the strains, and they're just being gently skimmed away. But the trouble and the challenge to meditation is that the thinking mind will tell you it's a waste of time because you're not doing anything. To
Mm,
regularly sit down for 20-25 minutes, maybe twice a day, repeating a prayer word, the brain will think this is an absolute waste of time. What's the point of doing it? I'm not doing anything, nothing's been achieved. But changes do take place. Often people who regularly meditate, other people notice changes in them before you do yourself. You begin to be a bit calmer. You don't overreact to situations.
mm,
And I think that's so important at the present time, is just to take each moment of each day at a time, and not to be wishing all the time to be somewhere else.
yeah, amazing. Um, And Geoff, you mentioned before this, as we were kind of talking before we hit the record button, that you sort of take meditation into prisons. Would you mind just maybe telling people a bit more about that and what that looks like?
Well, sure. I mentioned my wife. She was a prison chaplain in a large man's prison, and she knew I led meditation. So she thought it might be helpful for the prisoners. So we went into the prison, went to the governor, and as an experiment to see whether it was something that would interest the prisoners. And in fact, we ended up with a waiting list because we're only allowed about 20 at a time, and the prisoners need to kind of enrol for it each week. And what we found was they said it was life-changing. I mean, I remember one prisoner coming up to me, and he was known as a bit of a tough guy within the prison, and people would try and rile him up a bit. And he came to me, he said an incident that week where 2 or 3 prisoners had tried to get him to respond. And he said he just remembered the meditation and saying the mantra, and he just didn't respond. And he said he was beginning to, take back control of his life again. And one of the wonderful things about prisoners really is the fact that those who come to meditation kind of know they want to change. So they're opening to being still and listening and taking it very seriously. To a lot of them, the ego, if anything, is just one of complete despondency. So, and you can imagine being locked up in a cell 23 hours out of 24. Having the discipline and the meditation within the cell can be very helpful as well.
Yeah. And for people that maybe are listening to this and they haven't started meditation, this is maybe a new concept for them, what advice would you give to them in maybe integrating this into their prayer life, for example?
Well, ideally, if you can do a daily discipline, morning or evening, the best is 20 minutes morning and evening, but John Maynard, a Benedictine monk who kind of reintroduced this form of meditation to the West, said it may take you 20 years to get to that point. But it's really setting aside time to listen to God each day and not expect anything to happen. And that's the challenge, to be able to do something for 20 minutes and not expect anything to happen. And if you do that over a period of time, as I say, it can be life-changing. It's also a good way to start the meditation and then have other prayers of intercession, petition or whatever, or Bible study. But it's the listening before the saying, before the doing. I, as a Methodist, I think I mentioned to you in a pre-talk, what I'm attracted, it's a social gospel. We go out, we want to help other people. But sometimes I've seen so many messages completely worn out, in doing. Sometimes, in fact, are we sure what we're doing is what's needed? We need to be still and listen. And then from that inner depths of discipline of listening, then we're more able to respond. It also helps us to listen to other people. And the most powerful way of loving someone, of course, is to give them your full attention. And meditation, because you're concentrating, giving attention to the mantra, does help you be a bit more attention, as I said, to the present moment. And therefore, the person you're speaking to is the only thing that matters at that time.
Yeah, amazing. And I'm just wondering if for people listening, they want to find out more, they might want some resources or kind of some more information. Where can people go?
Well, there are groups all over the country, not at the moment, and most groups aren't meeting at the moment, particularly from this week, but there are groups all over the country. You can look up the World Community for Christian Meditation, and it'll show you where groups are, and it's got a whole load of resources, and it's completely you know, interdenominational, so you know, it's open to all people, and to people who at the moment are discovering and don't feel, you know, they're sure that they're a Christian. It's open to all.
Amazing, thank you. And so I was wondering, before I suppose our time together closes, whether or not you would be able to kind of set up for the people watching, kind of set us up almost for a meditation. Obviously, you talked about it being sort of 20 to 25 minutes in silence. Obviously, we both won't be sat here for that. But for those people watching that maybe after this video, they've watched this video, they quite want to have a bit of a go, I'll sort of give it a try, to kind of whether or not you're able to do that, if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll lead people into a meditation. First thing is, if you can, is to find a place in the house. It's not always easy for everybody, where you can meditate in silence. And also, if you've got a chair with a straight back, because how you sit is very important. So I'm going to lead now, so people might just want to follow me. But if we just gently close our eyes.
Great. And
a good way to be into the present moment is to take a deep breath, breathing in all the positivity and breathing out any frustrations of the day.
Just for the people watching this video, we'll stop after this. So just find yourself a bit of a space as Geoff leads us in this. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So we gently close our eyes, and if our brow is tight, just loosen our brow. Often if our tongue is at the top of our mouth, it's a sign of tension, so we drop our tongue to the bottom of our mouth. Might want to just roll our shoulders. Our back needs to be straight, our hands gently resting on our lap and our feet firmly on the ground. And during meditation, we often find that our body tries to distract us, but we don't respond to any kind of scratches or what needs to scratch. We just let it be, just see it as a distraction. And then to still our mind, we use a mantra, and the suggested mantra is the word Ma, Ra, Na, Tha. It's Aramaic. It's a language of Jesus, and it simply means come Lord, and it's found at the end of the first letter to Corinthians. So what we're doing is we're perfectly still, and in our mind we're just interiorly saying the word Ma, Ra, Na, Tha. And after about 2 seconds, our brain will want to go to a thought. We just let that thought go and keep going back to that prayer word, Ma, Ra, Na, Tha. And we simply do that for around 20 to 25 minutes and not expect anything to happen, and changes will take place.